you know you're supposed to feel grateful. That's the problem right there. Because if gratitude is something you're supposed to feel, it's not gratitude anymore. It's a performance. And most of us have been performing it for years without actually feeling it once. Here's what I mean. I sit with people who list off every good thing in their life: the job, the marriage, the health, a roof over their head, and their voice doesn't move at all. Flat, rehearsed, like they're reading it off a card someone handed them at church. And then 2 minutes later, they're in tears about something totally unrelated. And that feeling is real, the one they don't have to perform. So here's the question I actually ask people in session, and I want to ask you the same thing right now. Not, what are you grateful for? Everybody has an answer for that, loaded and ready, rehearsed, sitting right at the surface. I ask, when's the last time gratitude actually moved something in you? Not the list, the feeling underneath. If you're sitting there realizing it's been a while, that's not a character flaw. That's information. I had a business owner sit across from me once. Successful by every metric he could point out. And he pointed out a lot of them in the first session. And he said something I have never forgotten. I know I'm supposed to be thankful. I just can't find the switch. The word switch, that's the tell. He was talking about gratitude like it was a light fixture somewhere in him had gone bad. Like the wiring was fine, but he just needed to locate the broken part and flip it. That's not how this works. There's no switch. There's a whole nervous system that has to learn slowly that it's safe to feel good about something without immediately bracing for what comes next. He kept waiting for someone to hand him the fix in a single sentence. There isn't one. There's just the slow work of teaching a body something it never learned. I had someone else in my practice who told me she had tried every gratitude journal on the market. 5 things a day, every night for 2 years. And she said, I feel worse doing it than not doing it. That's not her failing at gratitude. That's gratitude being used on a nervous system that never was given permission to notice anything good in the first place. Because here's what nobody tells you about gratitude. It's not a discipline you can force onto a body that doesn't feel safe yet. You cannot think your way into feeling thankful the same way you can think your way into feeling relaxed in a room you don't trust. Something has to shift underneath it first. The list isn't the problem. The soil the list is getting planted in, that's the problem. And there's a second thing working against you. One that has nothing to do with your character at all. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. I call it the treadmill, because that's what it feels like in a session. You get the raise, and it feels incredible for about 6 weeks. Then it just becomes your salary. You get the relationship you prayed for. Feels like a miracle for a season. Then it's just Tuesday. Your brain is built to normalize good things fast, on purpose, so it can stay alert for the next threat. Which means gratitude isn't just hard to build, it's constantly being erased by the very system that is supposed to help survive. You beg God for something for months, and 6 weeks after you get it, it's just Tuesday again. And then there's the version of the struggle that didn't exist a generation ago. You're not just comparing your life to your own neighbor anymore. You're comparing it to a highlight reel from 4,000 people you've never met, updated every hour, forever. Nobody's nervous system was built for that much comparison data. So it's not that you've gotten worse at gratitude, it's the input has gotten louder than anything a human brain was ever designed to filter. If you've ever closed an app feeling worse about life and find later on, comment the feed underneath. So let's actually go underneath this. Because the struggle isn't that you're ungrateful. The struggle is usually that gratitude got taught to you wrong a long time before you ever picked up a journal. Think about where you first heard the word grateful. For a lot of people I sit with, it wasn't warm. It was coercion. You should be grateful you even have that. Other kids don't have what you have. Stop complaining. Some people would kill for your problems. Can you hear what's actually happening in this sentence? It's not teaching gratitude. It's teaching shame with a nicer name on it. And the brain learns gratitude as coercion, as a thing you say to make the guilt stop. Never actually learns to notice the good things. It just learns to shut down the complaint. Those are not the same skill. One opens you up, the other seals you shut. And most of the adults who taught it to you that way weren't trying to hurt you. They were just handing you the only version they'd ever been handed themselves. Here's the deeper layer, and this is the one that took me years of sitting across people to actually see. Your brain did not evolve to notice blessings. It evolved to notice threats. That's not a flaw in you, that's just what kept your ancestors alive. A brain that was spent its energy admiring a beautiful sunset instead of scanning for the thing in the grass didn't pass its genes on. So the wiring you inherited is a scan for danger first. And it's very good at that job every single day, whether you want it running that way or not. Which means gratitude was never going to be automatic. It has to be built on purpose. It's against the grain of what your nervous system is doing by default every single second. That's why just be more positive has never once worked for anyone. You're fighting biology with a bumper sticker, and biology always wins the fight in the short term. So no, it's not coming naturally doesn't mean something's broken in you. It means you are human. I think about a young man I worked with who grew up genuinely comfortable. Good family, good house, and he could not for the life of him feel grateful for any of it, and it wrecked him with guilt every time someone pointed out how good he had it. Here's what he found out underneath eventually. He'd grown up in the house where comparison was the whole air he breathed. Somebody was always doing better. A bigger house was down the street. A cousin that had better grades. His attention had been trained for 18 years to look at what was missing before it ever looked at what was there. That's not ingratitude, that's a trained lens. And you cannot out-positive a trained lens. You have to retrain it deliberately, the same way you'd retrain any other habit of attention. The pattern looks almost identical to nearly everyone I sit with. The specific lens, what yours got trained to compare against and why, that's the part that's actually different for you than anyone else. That's the part a video can't map out. That takes an actual conversation. There's one more version of this I see constantly, and it's the quiet one. The person who isn't comparing outward at all. They're comparing themselves against a version of who they think they should already be by now. I should be over this. I should be more thankful. Look how far I've come. That's not gratitude either. That's just shame wearing gratitude's clothes, and it's exhausting to carry because you never quite catch up to the person you're measuring yourself against. There's one more root I want to name because I don't hear anyone else naming it, and it shows up constantly. Some of you aren't struggling to notice good things. You notice them just fine. What you can't do is let yourself rest in them. Because somewhere along the way, usually a home where love had to be earned, where you were only celebrated when you performed, you learned that good things are the setup, not the safety. That the moment you relax into something good is exactly the moment it gets taken. So gratitude doesn't feel warm to you. It feels dangerous, like putting your guard down right before the hit lands. That's not pessimism. That's a nervous system that learned honestly from a real experience that enjoying something out loud invited a correction. And you can't logic your way out of a fear your body learned through repetition. That one has to be felt through slowly, usually with someone else in the room who isn't going to punish you for relaxing this time. Now, I want to be really careful here because this is where a lot of well-meaning teaching does damage. Gratitude and grief are not opposites. You do not have to choose between them. I've sat with people grieving a parent, grieving a marriage, grieving a diagnosis, who felt guilty for also feeling thankful in the middle of it. Like gratitude was a betrayal of the pain, or the pain was a betrayal of their faith. It's neither. A person can be devastated and thankful in the very same breath. That's not confusion. That's just what being fully human actually feels like. If you ever felt guilty for feeling both at once, or know somebody that has, send this to the person carrying the grief or gratitude in the same hand. So where does this actually show up in Scripture? Because I don't want to just hand you psychology with a Bible post-it note verse taped on top. I want you to see that this is old, biblically old. There's a story in Luke, chapter 17. 10 men with leprosy call out to Jesus from a distance. They're not even allowed close to him. That's how the disease worked back then. You were kept away from everyone you loved. And he heals all 10. Every single one. The same miracle, the same mercy, no favorites, nobody left out. But only one of them turns around. Only one of them comes back. Only one of them falls down thanking Jesus. And Jesus asked the question that I think about more than almost any other line in the Gospels. Where are the other 9? 9 people got the exact same healing and just kept walking. Not because they were bad people, probably because they were relieved and moving fast and already thinking about their families or their homes, their jobs, and everything they'd have back now that they were clean. Gratitude got crowded out by momentum. That's so human, it almost hurts to say out loud. Only one turned back, and that's the one Jesus calls out. Not because his healing was bigger for him, but because he's the only one who let it land somewhere before he ran off with it. 10 people were healed. One of them was actually changed by it. That's the difference between receiving something and letting it reach you. Let me know in the comments if you're one of those one, if you're the one or one of the 9. So here's the actual healing path, and I want to walk it with you the way I would in a session face-to-face or over video, not just tell you about it. Step 1, and this surprises people every time. Stop trying to feel grateful for everything. Start with one thing, something absurdly specific. Not my health. Everybody says that. Make it something specific. The way the coffee was still warm this morning. The way a specific person laughed at something you said yesterday. Specificity is what wakes the nervous system up. Vague gratitude bounces off. Specific gratitude lands because it forces your brain to actually retrieve a real moment instead of reciting a category it's memorized. Step 2, let the noticing happen before you decide how you feel about it. This is the part almost everyone skips. You don't have to feel warm and moved the first 50 times you practice this. You're not failing if it feels mechanical at first. You're building a muscle. A muscle doesn't feel strong on day 2. Can I challenge you with something? Give it 30 days before you decide whether it's working. If you've ever quit a practice 2-3 days because it didn't feel like anything was happening, comment the practice or say 30 days. Step 3, watch for the comparison creeping back in because it will. I shouldn't complain. Other people have it worse. That's not gratitude. It's suppression wearing gratitude's uniform. Real gratitude doesn't need someone else's suffering as a measuring stick. It stands out on its own. You're allowed to be thankful for your life without needing a worse life to compare it to. Step 4, and this is the one that changes everything for people I sit with. Let gratitude and grief sit in the same room. Don't kick one out to make space for the other. When you're in something hard, you don't need to force thankfulness over the top of it like a clamped down lid. You can say both sentences in the same breath. This is devastating, and I'm thankful she was with me at all. Both are true. Neither one cancels out the other. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to stop treating gratitude like a performance you owe God and start treating it like a muscle you're working out and building alongside Him. That's a completely different relationship to the practice, and it changes everything about how sustainable it is. Step 5, and this one I think gets skipped the most in every gratitude article you've ever read. Say it out loud to somebody, or say it out loud to God. Actually out loud, not just filed away in a private thought. A noticed blessing that never leaves your head barely counts as gratitude at all. It's still just an observation. Gratitude becomes real the moment it's spoken toward someone, a friend, a spouse, God Himself. That's what turns "I noticed something good" into "thank you." Those are two completely different postures, and only one of them changes. Here's what I've learned sitting with this over the years. The people who heal fastest aren't the ones with the best journal. They're the ones who tell somebody. And one last thing before I leave this. You have weeks where none of this works, where the noticing goes flat again, where the old comparison creeps back in, and where you catch yourself bracing instead of resting. That's not you failing the practice. That's just what it looks like to retrain something this old. Nobody builds a new lens in a straight line. You'll lose the thread and pick it back up probably 100 times, and every single one of those 100 times still counts. I can tell you the general shape of how this heals in people. I've watched it enough over the years to know the pattern really well. I can't tell you what your specific version of it looks like, what your trained lens is comparing against, or what it's actually going to take to retrain yours. That part isn't something a video can do. That's the part that takes an actual conversation, sitting across the room from someone, mapping it out slow, one layer at a time, which honestly is most of what real counseling sessions are. Because here's where this actually lands. You are not beloved because you got good at being grateful. You don't earn belovedness with a well-kept journal or a perfect streak. You were beloved before you ever noticed a single blessing, and you're still beloved on days you can't find one to name. Gratitude isn't the price of admission. It's what starts to grow naturally once you actually believe you're already home. That's the whole shift from broken to beloved in one sentence. You stop performing thankfulness to prove you deserve good things, and you start noticing good things because you already know you're beloved in the middle of them, on the good days and the flat ones. If something in this hit closer than you expected, that's not nothing. That's usually where the real work starts. The part that's actually specific to you, not the general pattern. And that's the work I do with people one-on-one, whether we're in the same room or meeting over a video. It doesn't change the work. It's still two people sitting with what's actually true, going slow enough to find the root instead of the surface. If that's where you're at, leave a comment, get in contact with me. I'd be glad to sit with you through it all.